Hello and welcome to this episode of Tripology, the only backpacking show where the hosts are perpetually nomadic on the road, moving about the globe like a pair of little travellers. I'm Alun and I'm here with the ever porcine Adam.
Every now and again you use an adjective that I don't know and I've never heard. You're going to have to describe porcine to me, mate. I think it sounds quite negative.
It is one of the few adjectives that has negative connotations that I've ever used to describe you, but I can justify it thusly. Basically, Adam, porcine means possessed of the qualities of a pig. However, I don't regard you in such a manner, but I would like to tell a story which involves a pig, and via that process, I'd want to describe you as porcine.
All right, so nothing but a segue.
Yeah, this week's adjectives was very much a vehicle with which I would like to move swiftly to a destination as yet unknown to you, and that is my description of a time in the Philippines, very recent time, where I went to experience a fiesta. It was a very exciting time. You don't know what a fiesta is, I take it. I don't really understand what a fiesta is, but I've been lucky enough to make some good friends here in Siargao, where I'm basing myself. And one day, one of them said, "Alan, we're going to go to Fiesta." And from the moment those words left his lips as an utterance, my life cascaded into such a wondrous series of events that I couldn't help but rush to a microphone to share them with you.
Right, I'm excited. I do remember actually being in the Philippines, well, both times when I was there in Manila with you and also when I was there previously, the heavy influence of the Spanish there. So I would hazard a guess that Fiesta's got something to do with a party or celebration.
There is a sort of party celebration aspect to it, yeah. Fiesta, usually, basically, I now understand that Fiestas are cultural celebrations that take place on a barangay level, like as a neighbourhood, and they often celebrate a patron saint of the neighbourhood or some other significant event to the neighbourhood. They spring up all over the island. They're ever so exciting. And my friend said, we're going to rent a car, we're going to gather sort of a lot of people, our friends, we're all going to drive down in this truck. You have a prime position in the back seat of the truck, but there'll be people in the truck bed. We're all going to drive from the south of Siargao, where we currently are, up to the north to a barangay called Burgos, which is having its fiesta. And we'll stay in a place there, we'll surf, we'll explore, and we'll eat food, which is the primary, as far as I can tell, draw of a fiesta, is the consumption of a lechon. Do you know all about lechon, my friend?
I think we had some lechon when we were together. Is it simply sort of barbecued pig belly, something along those lines?
We had a lechon together in the way that someone who has kicked a ball can be said to be a footballer, but really lechon in its raw fundamental sense is this pig on a spit that's been turned and roasted for several hours. On the morning of Fiesta, this family, one family in the barangay, they put this pig on a spit, they turn that guy for hours and hours and hours, starting at 5 a.m, and then around lunchtime, they invite everyone into their house. It's an open feast where the lechon, the pig, is served up. You go and just slice off bits with a knife. You can also, there's shrimp and calamari and all this stuff laid out in bowls. And the whole vibe of the fiesta is just come, eat. There's abundance. We all share together. We all have a family dinner. They were excited to have us there. They were live streaming, Instagramming. We were talking to them. It was a really beautiful, inclusive family time. I enjoyed it very much. But Anthony Bourdain is on record as saying that lechon, the Filipino spit roasted pig, is the best pig on planet Earth. And I have to say, after eating this family's lechon, I have to agree with him. It was something fairly astonishing.
How the hell, first of all, has this not been a rice for breakfast section? And second of all, you mentioned Anthony Bourdain. If you weren't going to, I was, because I know you're a massive fan of his. And that experience sounds very Bourdain-esque.
Yeah, and like a Bourdain episode, there was a fair amount of drinking going on, although I myself didn't partake because I was so blown away by the pig that I thought, if this is what's going on in my mouth from a taste bud perspective, alcohol would serve only to limit that experience, because it was truly like the crackling of the skin, the juiciness of the pork. To our vegetarian listeners, I mean, sometimes I'm on board with a bit of vegetarianism, but in this case, a little bit of local lechon spit roasted. It was something quite remarkable, and obviously a deep-seated cultural practice in the Philippines. And what was the nicest thing about it was the level of joy and acceptance that, like, all the families from the barangay came and descended upon this house and ate their food. It was like so nice. It was like big family Christmas dinner, but the family was the neighborhood.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, just hazard a guess, what sort of how many people are we talking about? I mean, is it like upwards of 50, 100, even more?
I reckon 100 people came through that house and ate of that lechon, yeah.
And you got side dishes going on, bit of music, anything like that?
Many side dishes, lots of music. There was like, we were staying just down the road, so we had a couple of skateboards and surfboards, and we were going around doing all these activities. In the town hall, the basketball court, there was like a beauty pageant going on and a talent show with dancing. And I imagine there's like lots of different neighborhood houses that open themselves up within the barangay, and every barangay on Siargao, of which there are several, have their own fiestas. They spring up at all different times depending on what their patron saint is or what they're celebrating. So there's like many that you can go to all through the year.
God, that sounds amazing. So have you now got your ear to the ground to try and get yourself to some other fiestas in the on the island?
I have I've considered basically making it a weekly goal to hunt down a fiesta going on somewhere. I don't know if that's an abuse of the tacitly friendly and communal nature of a fiesta, but I did have ever such a good time. And I think that's what's nice, right, about staying in one place for a little longer. I've been in Siargao for over a month now, and I will be staying here for a longer period of time. I'm going to use this as a base to do a bunch of things. And what's really nice is that you do make local friends. You do meet people who are doing interesting things like this fiesta. I think a lot of the travelers here staying in hostels wouldn't necessarily know, oh, there's a fiesta going on a couple of hours north. But the fact that I've been here a little while and made those friends has given me access to little cultural goings on that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to go and experience. So that's nice, isn't it?
It's very nice indeed. Yeah, I think that everyone should always try and get involved in stuff like that if they have the opportunity. I know that obviously there's vegetarians and vegans that maybe would go for the party but not partake in the eating of the food. And I know how prevalent pork and eating pigs is in the Philippines, because not only does it seem like the sort of protein of choice, but also, do you remember when we were in Banawi in the rice terraces and we were actually on our way back from a market that was also held in a basketball court?
Yeah.
Don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of good things happen in basketball courts in the Philippines. But on the way back, we saw a couple of pigs getting sort of captured from what seemed like off the street into a trailer,
yeah,
and then driven up the road in via motorbike. And even though we all ate pork on that trip, and we all, maybe you less than me and the other guy, but consume meat on a regular basis, one thing traveling does is really like reduces the gap between eating meat and seeing the animal sort of, go through its emotional, I don't know, whatever it goes to. I mean, bloody screeching at the top of its voice. It was terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, in the West, we really disguise that very well. But when you see a lechon on a stick being turned, there's no divorcing yourself from the actuality that was an animal that existed and lived and then was put, with a stick going into its mouth and out of its arse over a fire and roasted until it was, cooked through. There's no divorcing yourself from that eventuality. Obviously, it's like pretty much the same process as what goes on in the UK when we kill a chicken and put it on a spit. But rotisserie chicken is what I'm talking about. You might see one in the supermarket if you go. One of the cultural things you can do in the UK, conversely to the Philippines, is go to a supermarket and see a rotisserie chicken. So here replace the chicken with a lechon and replace the supermarket with a lovely community's back garden, and you've pretty much got what I experienced. Dude, Fiesta, I loved it a lot. I was struck by the friendliness of the people. I was struck with how much a part of it I felt. And I'm going to continue doing amazing things like that going forward. That's why I'm really excited about bedding down in Siargao for an extended period of time. But what I would love is for right now to sort of train my backpacking eye and ear, because I feel like one thing that happens when you bed down in a place for too long is that you lose your backpacking flair. And we have a solution for this on Tripology podcast. We have a little hypothetical backpacker training ground, and I need you to test me with some traveling hypotheticals. Can you do that for me?
I can, mate. Let's go over to a tripological reasoning.
Tripological reasoning.
Tripological reasoning, driving me insane.
Oh, what would you do? Tripological reasoning is the only reasonable way to practice backpacking without having to go through the sheer hell of having to do it for yourself. And on this episode, you're going to ask me some hypothetical questions. I'm going to tell you what I would do, and you can tell me whether you think I did a good job or not.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to this one, mate, because you are exactly the sort of person that needs to be asked these questions, and all will become clear very shortly. It's pretty niche. It's pretty, you might even think that I've invented it just for you. However, just imagine this, right? You like your sleep, don't you? You like your sleep. You're a very good sleeper. I would say you are quite a consistent sleeper. You normally go to bed. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know you're surfing. You're in a different routine now. You're talking 11, midnight maybe. Maybe you stay up, you're doing some editing late, but you do like to sleep through until 8 o'clock.
Yep, you can see me taped up, mouth closed shut with some medical tape by 11 o'clock, snoozing for a good 8 hours before getting up, having a coffee and doing some jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I know you better than most. You've got a routine, you stick to it, and it works. Now picture this. You're in a hostel. You're in a dorm. The dorm's full. There's probably 3-4 different dorms in the same building. And at 6 a.m., you're woken up to the sound. I'm going to reproduce the sound.
Okay.
But the sound is like someone is having a panic attack. If you can try and imagine, it was kind of, intermittent, a little bit sporadic, some screams. Think of, maybe, I'm probably going to risk getting cancelled here, but it's like as if someone's having sex, perhaps, and trying to sort of keep it down.
Right.
Or if someone who maybe has... I definitely can't say that.
Okay, was that the one that was going to get you cancelled? Because the thing about sex wasn't, but you were thinking forward.
Yeah, I'm thinking forward. It just sounded like someone was in a lot of trouble, a lot of distress, and definitely needed help. So you sort of think, okay, this is going on for about 20 minutes now. And
no one was helping.
No one.
That's a sad indictment of the hostel scene, isn't it?
No one was helping. It was so unbelievably early as well. It was so early that you're kind of disorientated. And then you go downstairs to where the noise is coming from. You see that 3 or 4 other backpackers have already woken up and have been woken up by this noise, and now are just deciding to stay awake in the foyer, looking very angry at each other. And as you peer around the corner into the kitchen, there is a gentleman who is wearing headphones. He's standing up in the kitchen.
One gentleman.
He's standing up in the kitchen, 6 a.m., 6:30, wearing headphones, watching his phone, which is perched on a kitchen worktop, and he's got a live fight of the UFC, and the sound is him shadowboxing and pretending to punch and kick and be involved in the fight as much as he's reliving what's going on in the kitchen of the hostel.
Mental. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I'm empathetic to his enjoyment of the fights, so I sort of want to be on his team. However, has he got headphones in, though?
Yeah, but the sound is him doing the sighs and the punches and the, sort of cheering from time to time.
What, and that's enough to wake up a whole hostel full of people?
I mean, we're talking loud, Alan. We're talking seriously loud.
So is he oblivious because he's got headphones in? He's oblivious to how loud he's being?
Yeah, so he's got headphones on and he's American.
Yeah. It's going to be difficult for me to do this as a tripological reasoning because what I actually do is I'm already up because I would have been watching the UFC. So I would have already been awake. I personally would have gone into the foyer, laptop, headphones on, wherever the Wi-Fi was best, and just watched the fight in quite a calm, sedate sort of a way. Having seen him up and so passionate shadowboxing, I would probably have reached out to him across, a human barrier and said, hey, would you like to watch the UFC with me? What do you think of these fights? I would have connected with him on a visceral level. That's not good tripological reasoning, though, so I'm going to have to transpose it to like, what if it was something I wasn't so into that he was doing, so I can be suitably... But you know what I would do, Adam? I would take it upon myself to go up to that person and say, mate, what are you doing? Please shut up. You've experienced me say that to people in hostels, haven't you? Do you remember that old guy in the hostel in Mumbai who was playing with that radio?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do. Actually, yeah.
And who confronted him?
It was you. It was you that represented the whole dorm.
Yeah, the whole dorm was upset with that guy playing what can only be described as radio tuning frequencies. And I said, listen, mate, you've got to stop doing that. And he went, oh, calm down, man.
So we never found out where he was from, actually, did we?
No, that's why I gave him an ambiguous accent.
Yeah, so the transatlantic, difficult to pin. But, I mean, take the UFC out of it, because I know you're obviously a mixed martial arts fan and you do watch the UFC almost religiously. You are also someone who really gets into fights. And I would say in the same way, imagine this guy really getting into the fight. But if we take the UFC out of it, or the fight out of it, and we put something else in there, what is going through this guy's head that he thinks it's acceptable at 6:30 in the morning to be behaving like that in a hostel? I mean, I just couldn't fathom it.
I think at that point you've lost all perspective as a result of your fandom and your enjoyment of the particular thing. But what staggers me about that is that he has gone through the necessary precautions to not wake everyone up. Like, he's gone to a different area, he's got out of his bed, he's gone to a different area, and then he's put in headphones. But then he's got too excited about the fight itself, and then all of those precautions have gone out of the wind.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm going to come clean. This did happen to me, and I've been keeping this a secret from you because I wanted to say it live on an episode because, I thought it's very appropriate to you and what you enjoy.
Yeah.
But it happened to me in Kobe last year, sort of last November, December time. And the way that I dealt with the situation, I think I'll hold my hands up. The problem I've got is that I'm not the best communicator. And especially if I'm dealing with people I don't know and they're doing something that is so unfathomable, something that I just cannot comprehend. I go from 0 to 100 before I've even had a chance to think about how I articulate a sentence. So I walked downstairs when it got to the point where it was unbearable, when I just thought this whatever's happening is serious and I need to go and help this person. I went downstairs, saw the people that were down in the foyer, a couple of them sort of like chatting, whispering to each other on a couch. And then I walked around the corner, saw this guy. I was incredulous, beside myself at what was going on. And I walked straight up to him in front of the phone so that he had to look at me. I tapped him on the shoulder and he was like none the wiser. He took his headphones off, big smile on his face and went, oh, hey, man. I said, what the fuck do you think you're doing? And he was like, what do you mean? I said, what the fuck are you doing? He was like, I'm just watching the fight, man. I was like, it's 6:30 in the morning. You've woken everyone up. He was like, oh, you guys can hear him? Oh, I'm so sorry. It's just getting into the action there. I was like, no, mate, you can't do that.
Oh.
You can't behave like this in a hostel.
I like him.
He was like, went right into his shell. And then, walked out. He sort of peered round and everyone was like, yeah, man, we've been up for hours, mate. It's like awful. You've woken us all up. he felt really bad.
Oh.
But, still, I just think, it's nuts, man. It's nuts.
Well, if he's listening, I'd like to hear his side of the story because I would like to know who was fighting. Because there's a few fights that have gone on that really justify his level of enthusiasm and a few fights which really didn't. So I think depending on, this is pending because depending on whether he can get in touch with us on tripologypodcast.com, contact form there, I'm either on his side or yours. But I think, basically, it was disrespectful to be so loud in a hostel. We all know that. And I think you did the right thing by confronting him. So well done to you and well done to me for saying the right answer in a tripological reasoning. It's about time, Adam, for us to hear from a listener. Maybe it will be that guy. Maybe he's sent one in. We don't know who it is until we hit play, but it's going to be Tales of a Trip. You can go to our website, tripologypodcast.com/Tales of a Trip, and you can basically record your greatest travel story. We'll play it on the show, and we're going to listen to one right now.
Okay, I have a good story that I was recommended to send in from a friend. When she heard what you guys are doing with the podcast, she came straight to me to get me to tell this story. So I flew to New Zealand in February to go travelling. I was flying from the UK. I took off from London. I flew to Vancouver. I spent 12 hours in Vancouver. I eventually got on my flight from Vancouver to Auckland. I sit down and I'm in the middle section of the plane and I'm thinking, brilliant. There's no one next to me. I've got all 3 seats to myself. I go to the loo. I come back and there's a couple next to me, a boy next to me and a girl the other side of him. He asked me for some water from my water bottle and I'm like, yeah, sure. He's very Kiwi, this guy. We start chatting. He introduces himself. I introduce myself. Yada, yada, yada. I go and watch a couple of films. He goes and does his thing. We put our earphones in. The first meal comes around. We start chatting over the meal. I ask him why he'd been in Scotland because that's where he was coming from. And we were just kind of getting to know each other. By this point, I'd established he wasn't with the girl next to him because he hadn't spoken to her once and she'd put her eye mask on. Anyway, chat goes on and then I go and watch a film. I go and watch When Harry Met Sally and he is actually playing the little quiz on the screen in front of him on the plane. Bear in mind this is a 14-hour flight, so there was a long time between all of these events. Anyway, we chat over we then end up chatting a bit more, like I'm helping him with this quiz. There's a little bit of leg touching, there's a bit of giggling, like he's really friendly, we're getting on really well. Anyway, eventually the armrest comes up between us and his hand is on my leg. And bear in mind, this is a night flight. And also I had established that he was 6'2". He then takes his baseball cap off and his little neck pillow. And I'm thinking, okay, what's going to happen here? And yeah, we end up snogging on the plane. And this goes on and we're cuddling on the flight and we're kissing and we're having a great time. I'm having a wonderful time. This is a good way to see through this flight. And yeah, my seat was back, so the people behind us would have been able to see us snogging on the plane. And there wasn't just one snog, there was multiple. So the air hostesses would have been like, check out row 32, because they didn't know each other when they got on the plane. The poor girl the other side of him, I dread to know what she was thinking through this flight. Anyway, we get to the airport, we walk through the airport together. He has a Kiwi passport, I have an English passport. I have to queue up to declare my shoes because you have to declare if you have like different types of shoes. Anyway, I spend 3 hours in the airport. He gets through straight away, but he had to catch an internal flight. So by the time I got through security, the other side, he was gone and we didn't get each other's numbers. But I did find him on Facebook. So that's my story. I never saw him again. We were both ginger, which adds to the story. So yeah, there you go.
Mental.
There we go. From Georgie, thank you so much for sending it in. The New Zealand border control shoe policy, keeping both seeds and relationships from blossoming erroneously in New Zealand for a very long time. Of course, they don't want you bringing shoes into New Zealand in case you introduce the seeds of invasive species onto their soil. But it seems in this instance, Adam, to have prevented a beautiful ginger relationship from forming.
Yeah. I mean, that is just so outside of anything I've experienced or can even imagine happening to me, I think.
Never happened to you? Have you ever formed a romance on any public transport?
I mean, maybe hit it off. Maybe, to the point where you think, oh, that person was really lovely. You exchange details, you agreed to keep in touch, and maybe there was a little bit of flirting going on, or you can feel that sort of energy, that sexual tension, but not to the point where you're just snogging a stranger on a flight.
Yeah, it's quite bold, isn't it? Will Self often says that flying is the antithetical medium to walking, and I myself have had romances blossom on free walking tours, but never on a paid flight. So that tells you something about the key differences between me and Georgie. for me, it takes basically a long time walking in order to try and establish a rapport and a connection. But I suppose a flight is actually a better. Well, actually, a flight you have much longer than a walking tour, don't you?
Yeah. Much and much less walking as well.
You have a real captive audience for a long time. So I think for me, maybe what it tells me is that I thrive on the intermittent, short 30 seconds you get between the tour guide piping up, in which I can sort of give the best of myself. And then when I sort of run out of things to say, or I'm getting a bit annoying, the tour guide goes, "Oh, and look, this is the Duomo di Milano." And then I think, thank God, that's so great. He's doing that. And then I'll do a bit more conversation. Georgie had to deal with uninterrupted flirtation for a whole flight, although she did have movies, I suppose.
I wonder if like this sort of speaks to the parallel universes where anything can be curated. There's always like, things can happen if you just say the right things in the right order. Like I wonder if there's a parallel universe where he actually gets off with the girl on the left that put the eye mask on.
Yeah. So do we describe to a deterministic process of what we think went on that flight? Was it Harry Met Sally? If the other girl had refused to put the eye mask on and she'd put an equally captivating rom-com, then he'd have been playing the quiz in the middle seat, looking over at Harry Met Sally, looking over at 50 First Dates, and he's thinking, goodness, who shall I raise the armrest in between now?
Yeah. I'm sure maybe Georgie's gone, "Oh, I'll have the vegetarian option, please." And he's gone, "So will I."
Oh, wow. Wouldn't that be a beautiful moment? I found it incredibly bold that Georgie had that experience with, let's call him man.
6'2" ginger Kiwi.
With 6'2" man. And yet at no point did the exchanging of numbers be discussed, presumably because when phones are in flight mode, they're out of sight and out of mind.
Yeah, well, maybe that's what makes it so pure. Maybe that's what travelling's all about. Maybe that experience, could only have happened in this context. And sometimes there's something just so innocent and so beautiful that you don't necessarily need to punctuate it with, "Oh, I guess we got to exchange Instagrams now." Now she's blasted it all over the podcast. I wonder if this guy's going to be listening thinking, "Hang on, I'm 6'2", I'm ginger, I kissed a girl on a flight."
Well, I do quizzes on planes. Yeah, I think there's something intrinsically romantic about taking public transport at night, because the times where I've been travelling as part of a relationship and we've taken a little night bus together, I've found it quite intimate.
Sexy.
Yeah. A little bit sexy, yeah. You're sort of like there all cuddled up on a seat, and you're in it for the long haul, and it's going to be a terrible, uncomfortable journey where you both arrive tired and bleary-eyed at your next location, but you'll make it through together. I think that's quite sweet.
You just say at the beginning of the journey, I mean, frankly, it would be more weird if we didn't have sex.
I've got to be honest, love. I have to take my contact lenses out on these long bus rides, so I'm not going to see a damn thing.
Oh, I love it. You love to hear it. I mean, that is so different from every story we've had so far.
Yeah, and that's what I liked about it. It was all different, wasn't it? And if you've got a sort of sexy tale, perhaps you met someone and very quickly found yourself gallivanting off onto the rooftop of an hostel, I want to hear from you. Tripologypodcast.com/tales of a trip. What's your greatest, sexiest, most memorable, most heartbreaking, most beautiful travel memory? Me and Adam want to listen to it and expose it to the world on this big, beautiful podcast. Or you can just type us an email. There's a contact form there as well. But right now, we're going to go to a little section that takes place beyond the podcast that you can access only on Patreon. Tripology Podcast. Let's go there right now, Adam. Thank you for joining me for the ride.
Yeah, we'll see you there. See you on the next one. Ciao.
See you next week. Bye.